One cigarette, one spark, one backfiring vehicle, one piece of equipment, one power line could affect millions of people.
Bracing for fire weather, the critical conditions pushing San Diego into the highest wildfire alert so far. And coming soon to San Diego police, a higher paycheck, the compensation package aimed at keeping officers in town. Also, Navy family reunions today in San Diego, the strike group that helped fight ISIS overseas. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A state of emergency in Southern California tonight. Governor Jerry Brown made the declaration as wildfires destroyed homes in Ventura County, north of Los Angeles. The fires are being pushed by the same Santa Ana winds we're feeling in San Diego. The largest fire right now is the Thomas Fire, which took off overnight in Santa Paula. Firefighters say 70 square miles have burned. Dozens of homes and even a psychiatric hospital are destroyed. Tens of thousands of people have been forced to evacuate.
We are facing critical fire behavior in ways that people may not have experienced in the past. This is the fifth year of an ongoing drought. I know that we had some rain this year, but just enough grass crop to have flashy fuels. We have erratic wind behavior from our department.
Closer to LA, fire crews are also busy with a fire threatening homes in Silmar area. And in San Bernardino, a fire broke out this afternoon near the 15 and 215 interchange. Winds have been strong enough at times to ground firefighting aircraft. The governor's emergency declaration will help move resources to where they're needed most. San Diego Gas and Electric is planning outages in San Diego County during the windy weather. The utility's website shows the areas impacted. Some planned outages are already happening. That includes parts of Descanso, where power won't be restored until Friday. The map can be found at sdgne.org/safety. The National Weather Service is warning of much more dangerous conditions by Thursday. The forecast has prompted officials to issue its highest possible wildfire alert. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy reports from the National Weather Service in Rancho Bernardo.
Fire danger will be high all week, but on Thursday, San Diego County and all of Southern California will be under a purple alert. The extreme warning means fires could have explosive growth, burn very intensely, and be uncontrollable.
It takes low humidity, it takes high wind speed, it takes dry fuels, so the vegetation ready to burn.
Santa Ana winds moved into San Diego County on Monday, with gusts in some areas reaching 40 to 50 miles per hour. But National Weather Service meteorologist Alex Tardy says the worst is yet to come.
Now, when things really turn the corner and get a little scary is Wednesday night and Thursday morning. And really all day Thursday is when we could see the potential for those 80 to 100 mile per hour winds, 100, 100 per hour winds in the mountains.
The foothills could see 60 to 70 mile per hour gusts, strong enough to cause damage even without flames.
When you start talking over 60 miles per hour, over 70 miles per hour, easily that could be any tree, any loose object, any roof could be damaged.
Tardy says even coastal area wind speeds could hit 45 miles per hour, the same strength of fierce winds fanning the catastrophic Ventura fire.
It's a very critical situation. It's a situation where everyone has to be involved in paying attention to prevent the fires, because one cigarette, one spark, one backfiring vehicle, one piece of equipment, one power line could affect millions of people.
That's why San Diego and all of Southern California will be under the region's highest wildfire danger alert. The rating system is comprised of 4 increasingly dire, color-coded levels, from yellow to orange to red to purple. San Diego has been in the yellow or marginal since Monday. Thursday is projected to be in the purple, the highest level. Purple has never been issued since the program was created in 2014.
We have seen big, large, uncontrollable fires in these conditions historically when you match it all together, and that's what puts us in the purple.
Tardy says San Diego County is experiencing one of the driest starts to the rainy season ever recorded. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Good evening. Hopefully you had a nice day. I'm sure you felt those winds because they have been blowing, and it's going to continue like this through Thursday. The Santa Ana's in full effect. We're seeing some gusts up to 60, even 80 miles per hour, mainly through the mountains and the deserts. Those passes, both hands on the steering wheel. It's going to be awfully dangerous driving down the highways. We're seeing the gustiest of the winds from Los Angeles down to San Diego in the interior areas for San Diego County. So very dangerous. We are expecting some power outages. If you have Christmas decorations outside, you might want to bring them inside. We're also under a red flag warning across much of the county here. We're already seeing wildfires burning to the north of us, and we're in those exact same dry, windy conditions. So very dangerous for that as well. So tomorrow morning when you put the kiddos on the school bus, it's going to be gusts blowing around 30 miles per hour in some places. And then Thursday morning, even worse, we could see some gusts around 55 miles per hour. I'll have full details in just a few minutes.
We're staying on top of the fire situation on all of our platforms. For the latest information, just go to our website at kpbs.org. San Diego police officers are getting a raise. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the city council unanimously approved the measure today.
San Diego has long suffered from a shortage of police officers who can easily find better pay and benefits in other cities and counties. The first pay raise will come in July of next year, with 3 other pay bumps following. It's unclear how the city will pay for the raises, something Councilman Chris Cate says the city is aware of.
Yes, it's going to hit the pocketbook. Yes, it's going to have an increased cost. But yes, it's absolutely 100% needed, and we have to start thinking about how we make this work.
San Diego is considered one of the safest big cities in America, but the shortage of police officers has resulted in long wait times for all but the most serious emergencies. Councilman David Alvarez says officer pay is not the only thing the city has to grow.
We have to grow in what we do in our communities to establish that relationship that I think has been eroded a little bit because of the demands on the police department today, which is to respond to emergency calls and the priorities.
San Diego is already expecting a budget deficit next year. Officials say one new revenue source for the raises are taxes on legalized marijuana, something the city's police chief has strongly opposed. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
New numbers on immigration enforcement show just how much things have changed under President Donald Trump. The latest figures include arrests at border crossings and arrests everywhere that often led to deportations. The period covers the latest fiscal year that ended in September. Arrests by Border Patrol agents at border crossings are down 25% in 1 year, reaching the lowest level since 1971. That's a sharp contrast to the work done by ICE, which saw an increase of 25% in its number of arrests. A homecoming for Navy families today in Coronado. The USS Nimitz strike group is back after a 6-month mission that included strikes against ISIS. While the Nimitz is based in Washington state, the San Diego-based USS Howard is part of the group that arrived today. More warships will arrive in San Diego tomorrow. Separately, the USS Princeton arrived home today after an 18-month trip to Southeast Asia. Republicans in Congress are pushing back a crucial vote to Thursday that would prevent a partial government shutdown. They're also still trying to work out the differences between the House and Senate versions of the tax reform bill. KPBS investigative reporter Amita Sharma spoke to a local economist who says the plans will make it tougher for San Diegans to buy a home.
The Republican tax bill would limit mortgage interest deductions. University of San Diego economist Alan Jin says those deductions are currently a tax advantage that helps make homes more affordable.
We've already got really high prices as far as homes are concerned, and so it's going to be even more difficult to purchase homes. So I expect the housing market, both locally and in the state of California, then to be adversely affected.
Jin also says the tax plan's proposed elimination of deductions for local and state taxes means less money in people's pockets. He predicts a ripple effect on the economy and a decline in revenue to local governments. Jin says winners include people with large estates as well as corporations, which will see their tax rate dip from 32 to 20%. Amitha Sharma, KPBS News.
In National City, the City Council will decide tonight whether to raise sewer rates. The public will be allowed to comment before the vote is cast. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has the story.
The total increase for single-family homes would be $19.10 a month, phased in over 5 years. In October, the National City Council was presented with results of a sewer rate study, which found the city will begin to lose money unless monthly rates are increased soon. National City is one of a number of municipalities that uses the City of San Diego's Metropolitan Sewage Treatment System to dispose its waste. Now, it's a big chunk of what their sewer expenses are, and this chart shows in blue here it's about to get even bigger. The City of San Diego is currently building a pure water treatment plant and plans to pass along some of those costs to cities that use its sewer services, like National City. Now, all this has Mayor Ron Morrison frustrated.
People are going to look at that and say, wait a minute, I'm on a fixed income, we're a low-income city, and you're going to raise this 50% over the next 5 years. How dare you as a city council? The problem is the money has to be paid out of the sewer fund. We can't pay it out of something else. It has to be paid out of that, and so we have to put the money into there, and we don't have a choice.
Now, rates would actually increase as much as 37%, not quite 50%. Single-family homes currently pay about $32 a month for sewer, and by 2023, that would be up to $51. Now, when that sewer rate study was presented in October, a resident did ask National City about creating their own sewer disposal system, but Mayor Morrison dismissed that idea, saying their only other option would be to dump city waste in the San Diego Bay. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Volunteers took advantage of this week's king tides to look for endangered ridgeway rails at Mission Bay's Kendall Frost Marsh. High water levels flood the saltwater marsh that the birds typically hide in. Isabel Kay is the reserve's manager, and she says king tides put most of the 40-acre marsh underwater.
Because we've developed right up to the edge of the marsh, we have almost none of this transition zone habitat and a buffer of natural habitat. So then the birds are actually forced to use our artificial nesting platforms.
The ridgeway rail population at the marsh has been as high as 70 pairs of birds and as low as 18 pairs. Kay says increasing the size of the marsh will allow the birds' population to increase. As we reported at the top of the show, major wildfires are burning in Southern California due to strong winds in the region. San Diego's red flag warning has been extended through Saturday night. Here's Erin Calandra with another look at the forecast.
Good evening. Those winds are going to continue to howl tonight, tomorrow, even through Thursday. But taking a look at our satellite and radar, things are awfully quiet across the county for precipitation. It is dry and it's windy, so we do have a red flag warning across much of the county. Wildfire is a huge concern right now. We already see a couple of them burning to the north of us, and we're sharing those same exact conditions. Tomorrow morning, 7:30, when you're putting the kiddos on the school bus, well, we're going to see some gusts near 30 miles per hour in places like Poway, and it's only going to get worse. It's going to go down throughout the day, but then Thursday morning, they really kick in. We're going to see gusts around 55, 46, even 47 miles per hour in some places. So you might want to think about maybe driving the kids to school or at least standing with them at the school bus stop on Thursday, because it's going to be very dangerous. And then while you're driving into work around 8:30, those gusts, they're going to increase by just a few miles per hour and then eventually dying out throughout the evening. So for tonight, it's going to stay quiet. 48 degrees, but windy, and our overnight lows in those 40s, low 40s to upper 30s across the county. That fire threat, it's going to continue through Wednesday. Here we are in the red, so it's going to be very dry and very windy and dangerous. Our temperatures slightly above average. San Diego, we should be 66 this time of year. We're at 73, and in Poway 79, Ramona 74, and Alpine 73 degrees. And those Santa Ana winds, well, they increase our temperatures by a couple degrees. So along the coast, we're going to be in the mid to upper 70s throughout the week. Inland, we're even reaching the 80s for the weekend. And in the mountains, it's going to stay in the 50s. Very, very windy on Thursday. And through the deserts, we're in the 70s throughout the week. It's going to stay dry, windy, and pretty pleasant temperature-wise. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
The Mission Bay Park Committee will make a decision this evening on two proposals that could dramatically reshape the areas that include the De Anza Cove. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The two plans were hammered out during a months-long public and private process. Now, both alternatives call for campland on the bay to close, so that 40 acres can become wetlands. Golfing would stay. There would be recreational areas, a restaurant. RV camping would be allowed on the De Anza Peninsula, which will also have more wetlands and some paths for the public. City planner Alyssa Muto says the struggle is to balance all the uses.
We have leaseholders and a lease revenue that is important for the continued management and maintenance of Mission Bay Regional Park. And we have the need to balance the natural resources to address and maintain good water quality and habitats for the species that live and use Mission Bay.
But the alternatives are under fire from campers, golf enthusiasts, and environmentalists. All worry that their interests aren't adequately represented. The Audubon Society's Rebecca Schwartz-Lesberg says coming climate change could leave planned wetlands underwater.
As sea levels rise, very important parts of this northeast corner of Mission Bay will flood under the plans that the city is putting forth. They do have the science and technology and information to develop plans that would be sustainable to sea level rise. These are not them.
The Mission Bay Park Committee could pick a preferred alternative and send it to the City Council. They could call for more work from city staff on these two plans, or they could reject the plans outright. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump signals plans to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, igniting fears of violence. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
4 years after hosting the Olympics, the Russian flag will not fly at the next Winter Games. Today, the International Olympic Committee enacted harsh penalties for Russia's role in a doping scandal. Russian athletes who want to compete in South Korea will face greater scrutiny in drug tests. They will be banned from wearing their Russian uniforms. Their official distinction will be an Olympic athlete from Russia under the Olympic flag. The longest-serving member of Congress is resigning amid sexual harassment allegations. John Conyers, a Democrat from Detroit, had faced repeated calls to step aside, including from Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. He denies the allegations from women who once worked for him. Conyers was first elected to Congress in 1964. He was hospitalized last week for stress-related issues. Tensions outside the U.S. Supreme Court today. Inside, justices were hearing the first major gay rights case since the landmark marriage ruling in 2015. Demonstrators on both sides turned out for a case involving a Colorado baker who refused to serve a gay couple. The baker claims a violation of his freedom of speech and religion. The couple says they should be served just like anyone else.
It's hard to believe that the government is forcing me to choose between providing for my family and my employees and violating my relationship with God. That is not freedom. That is not tolerance.
This is about real pain felt by real people and things that are suffered every day by LGBT people across this country.
Justice Anthony Kennedy, who ruled in favor of marriage equality, is expected to be the swing vote in this case. A ruling will be announced in June. A new documentary, The Problem with Apu, takes on The Simpsons.
Pay for your purchases and get out and come again.
How many of you had to deal with being called a poo or that being referenced?
Delhi. Comedian and writer Hari Kondabolu explores how an Indian convenience store owner falls back on stereotypes to generate laughs. KQED's Tui Vu talks to the comedian about the depiction of his culture on the screen and beyond.
And joining me now is Kondabolu. So nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
The Simpsons was one of your favorite TV shows as a kid, and yet you were so frustrated with the character named Apu. Why?
Apu was a convenience store owner, very one-dimensional, stereotypical. And at that time, that's the only depiction South Asian Americans had, specifically Indian Americans. Like, we didn't have anything else. And initially, I think I was excited because we had something. When you have nothing, you're excited about anything. But as I got older, I realized, oh, this is all we have. And this is how my parents are depicted. And it's such a narrow way to be seen.
Was it the accents? Because a white actor, Hank Azaria, did the accent.
The accent's definitely a part of it. It's an accent meant to elicit laughter. It's not that realistic. The fact that everything he did always was connected to his Indianness, or what like the white writers and executives thought Indianness was. I mean, it was everything. And a lot of it also was just the fact that there was nothing to contrast it with. We didn't have another character. We didn't have someone else to be like, oh, that's another way that they can exist in the world.
You are taking on a well-loved TV show and taking on the question of Apu in relation to identity politics. So what was your process in deciding how to present this issue in a way that would make sense and matter to a broad audience?
Sure. I mean, I think The Simpsons is a great way it's a great place to start because it's The Simpsons. It's a global show. Like, there's so many of us who grew up on it. The Simpsons, at its peak, influenced so much of the conversation of the country. I mean, it was a very important show. So that already gave me a place, an institution to start from. And Apu was definitely a very well-known character because it was the only South Asian character. And because the show is still on today, we can break it down and analyze it just the way, in a way that allows us to talk about representation at large. This is how this character was created. This is why it was created. This is the impact of it. Like, I think it was a microcosm of the larger issue.
What was the impact, do you think, of Apu?
I mean, I think for a lot of young South Asian Americans, I think it shaped our identity. There was a certain embarrassment sometimes about being who we were. There was an embarrassment of our parents. I mean, there was shame. There was a sense of we are not American. We are less American. We don't fit. We have to fight against this constantly. I mean, I think those early childhood experiences always shape you, and that was, I think, a thing that shaped a lot of us.
But yet there's a moment in your film where you interview your parents, and they're both Indian immigrants, and they say they weren't offended by Apu. They weren't bothered that the voice was done by a white actor.
Right. I mean, I think my mom said that it's not that she wasn't offended. It was that, it wasn't something she really worried about. When you're coming to this country and the stakes are so high, you're not really worried about things like, how am I being seen? Like, you worry about, your bills. But I think as someone who was born in this country, grew up in this country, there's a certain entitlement that I think I rightfully have to expect the same as everyone else. My parents have now lived in America longer than they've lived in India. This is home, and I think they have that entitlement more now than they did before. They didn't even know if they were going to stay for the long term. So, I mean, I feel like that's a big difference. I expect to be treated the way everyone else is treated.
And you don't do accents in your comedy anymore. Is that part of that thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I did accents when I was 17, 18, 19 because I knew it would work. And I knew it would work because of The Simpsons. I knew that accent would work. And as a young comedian, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't silence. I was filling that with laughter. But as I got older, and particularly after 9/11, I realized the impact representation had, the impact of images, especially when South Asians were being beaten up around the country, Muslims, Sikhs. I knew that, like, us speaking out and us being public and showing a broad range of identities, like, would shape that public image. And I knew I couldn't do those voices anymore. It was so minimizing.
Your film, The Problem with Apu, grew out of a bit that you did a few years ago for Totally Biased with W. Kamau Bell. Yeah. You worked on that show. A lot of your comedy deals with race and ethnicity. Do you view your comedy as a form of activism?
No, I mean, I mean, this film I think is a little different because it's an in-depth look at a particular topic. But my stand-up, at the end of the day, it has to make people laugh, and I'm not going to say something that is, even if it's thoughtful, that doesn't make people laugh, because why would people listen to me? I mean, stand-up strength is that people listen because there's the promise of laughter. So, I mean, an activist goal is to push an issue and to get it as far as they can and to try to make progress, whether it's legislatively or socially. That's not my goal with stand-up. My goal with stand-up is to entertain people.
And entertain them you do. All right, hurry, Kondabolu, thank you very much.
Appreciate that, Tweet. Thank you.
You can see more of KQED's interview on kpbs.org. Recapping tonight's top story, California's wildfires continue to spread under the influence of strong winds. Governor Jerry Brown has declared a state of emergency in Ventura County, north of Los Angeles. The fires destroyed dozens of homes. Tens of thousands of people have been forced to evacuate. The fires are being pushed by the same Santa Ana winds we're feeling in San Diego. Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, how do you balance increasing housing supply while protecting low-income residents from displacement? We check in on a proposed development that has become a focal point for San Diego's housing crisis. And on Midday Edition, could styrofoam food containers go by the way of plastic grocery bags? Another San Diego city is considering a ban. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.